What's up, everyone? Today is December 12th of 2023. My name is Derek. Welcome back. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the death of former Tennessee Titans tight end Frank Wycheck, who died suddenly over the weekend at the age of 52. In this video, we're going to be covering the numerology, astrology, and synchronicity surrounding the death of Frank Wycheck, of which there is tons. Frank Wycheck passed away after falling and hitting his head at his Chattanooga home, and he was found dead on Saturday on December 9th. Now, what's so interesting about December 9th, with a famous Tennessee football player passing away, is that December 9th was also a disastrous day for weather in Tennessee, as multiple tornadoes touched down in the state, killing at least 6 people and leaving hundreds of thousands of people without power for a long duration of time. And this is a perfect example of what I talk about all the time on this channel: great synchronicity surrounding major celebrity deaths. And Frank Wycheck, while I don't think he was a Hall of Famer, a very legendary tight end in Tennessee football lore. He played in Super Bowl 34, where the Titans lost to the Rams. So let's talk about some of the other things we'll be discussing in this video. Frank Wycheck was best known for his lateral pass in the 2000 playoffs, which led the Titans to the Super Bowl. This is called the Music City Miracle from January 8th of 2000, and is a significant part of this riddle, as we'll see. Of course, that led to Super Bowl 34 a few weeks later, the famous 1-yard short game, and we'll discuss how the number 34 is connected to the Tennessee Titans. 2 days after Wycheck's death, the Tennessee Titans played part of a doubleheader on Monday Night Football, which is pretty rare. You usually only see this at the very beginning or end of the year. The Titans ended up making a miraculous last-minute comeback, and the Packers, meanwhile, lost to a last-second field goal from the New York Giants. The reason I point this out is because back in 2020, in Week 16, the Titans visited the Green Bay Packers 2 days after Christmas. Now, this is a matchup that only happens once every 4 years. 2 days earlier, on December 25th of 2020, was the big Nashville bombing in downtown Nashville, Tennessee, near the Time Warner building. In the links in the description below, you'll see my video on the Nashville bombing from that year. And in that video, I discuss how it was all connected to the planet Uranus, as Pope Francis, who was born on the same date that Uranus was discovered, celebrated his first Uranian birthday on that very date. And that's significant because nuclear bombs they contain uranium-235, one of 2 fissile materials, along with plutonium-239. Now, where this will really get interesting is how we'll compare this to the death of Bob Saget from early 2022. Now, Bob Saget, just like Frank Wycheck, slipped and fell, causing blunt head trauma, which led to his death as he was found several hours later. This is virtually identical to the manner in which Frank Wycheck died, slipping and falling and hitting his head, found several hours later. Well, Frank Wycheck was born in the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That just so happens to be the same city as Bob Saget, born in Philadelphia. So there are a multitude of connections with Bob Saget, and notice how Bob Saget's full name has matching Gematria with planet Uranus. Another famous man to have died who was born in Philadelphia was Kobe Bryant, born back in 1978, also in Philadelphia. Now, Kobe Bryant's name in Latin Gematria, we'll take a look at these ciphers shortly, has matching 690 value with Remember the Titans. And what we'll look at is how the death of Kobe Bryant, which we already have decoded in relation to the planet Mercury, is completely synced with the Titans/Houston Oilers franchise. We'll also take a look at the eclipse code before we get to the planetary syncs. Frank Wycheck's last birthday was October 14th, and on that date, there was an annular eclipse over the southwestern United States. Frank Wycheck died at the age of 52, and we had that eclipse on his 52nd birthday. Well, back in the year 2021, we had a significant solar eclipse that was completely connected to the number 52. This eclipse even happened 52 days after Frank's birthday, so we'll see how that ties in. And of course, we'll also take a look at the two Great American total solar eclipses. The first Great American eclipse from 2017 passed directly over the city of Nashville, Tennessee. And as such, we will see how this all connects to the Skull and Bones Code with Yale University, who turned 322 years old earlier this year. In Gematria, which is the ancient number lettering system used by the mystics to gain a deeper understanding about truth in our reality, notice how the word tornadoes has matching 666 Gematria with Wycheck, and 666, a very significant eclipse number, as I commonly teach on this channel. So let's quickly touch on this Music City Miracle, a famous NFL playoff play which has its own Wikipedia page. This, of course, led to the Titans' appearance in Super Bowl 34. Have you ever wondered why there was a miracle on 34th Street? Well, in the reduction language of Gematria, the reduction method, also called Pythagorean, takes the alphabetic order and reduces every double-digit number to a single digit prior to adding it to the equation. And using this reduction method, the word miracle has Gematria of 34. In that same method, Tennessee sums to 34 in reduction. This brings us to Latin Gematria, also called Agrippa's Key, which I consider to be the most significant cipher in Gematria, particularly when it comes to large numbers. And in Latin, the name Titans equals 340, which represents 34 without the zero. So it's fitting that the Tennessee Titans made their first Super Bowl appearance that year, and it was also the first year that they became the Tennessee Titans. They were the Tennessee Oilers for 2 years before that. The word murder also sums to 34, and notice how murder has matching 79 and 83 Gematria with Titans. This will be a significant component when we look at the death of Kobe Bryant, whose mercurial age is completely synced up with these numbers and Tennessee. In both single reduction and standard Gematria, the standard method, almost identical to Latin Gematria, the numerical structure is the same, but instead the 26-letter current English alphabet is used. And notice how Tennessee sums to both 52 and 520. Frank Wycheck, dead at the age of 52. Also in standard, Titans equals 560. In reduction, Frank Wycheck equals 56. And Frank Wycheck died 56 days after his 52nd birthday. Regarding the number 56, Bob Saget, who this is completely connected to, also born in the year 56, and we'll see how all of his numbers connect to Frank Wycheck as we go. So Wycheck was responsible for the Music City Miracle. And notice how the word miracle sums to 128 in reverse. Well, the football team from Philadelphia, where Frank and Saget were both born, are the Eagles. And notice how Eagles sums to 128, just like Cowboys. And one day after Wycheck died, the Eagles played the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football in the feature game that weekend. Wycheck also went to college at Maryland, and Maryland also gives us this 128. Bob Saget died 128 days before his birthday. And using the standard alphabetic order, the name Frank Wycheck sums to 128. Wycheck was a tight end, which equals 129. If you include the end date, Saget died 129 days before his birthday. This brings us to the date that Frank Wycheck died, December 9th, written 12/9. How ideal for the franchise's most famous tight end. So Wycheck was born in the state of Pennsylvania. And this is a huge part of this riddle. Notice how the state of Pennsylvania has matching Latin and standard gematria with the name Frank Wycheck, both 1406 and 1466. On the date Frank Wycheck was born, the Tennessee Titans were exactly 146 months old. You'll see the Titans established on the 14th of the month, much like how Frank Wycheck was born on the 14th. This will lead us into the big 14-point comeback in week 14 for the Titans. But Frank Wycheck, born exactly 146 months after the Titans were founded. Again, 1406, Pennsylvania, and Frank Wycheck. In the city of Philadelphia, this is where the Star-Spangled Banner was first woven by Betsy Ross. You'll see here, Philadelphia, home to the American flag. And I mention this because 1406 is Flag Day in the United States, the 14th of June. In ordinal, the Star-Spangled Banner has matching 223 gematria with the city of Philadelphia, where it was first woven. And of course, here we are in the year 2023. This is a riddle I've been talking about all year. The Betsy Ross flag was first sewn at 239 Arch Street. This is called the Betsy Ross House. And the number associated with that is 239. Well, last night, the Tennessee Titans picked up their 239th victory since moving to Tennessee. Remember, this franchise used to be the Houston Oilers. But if you count the number of wins since moving to Tennessee, you get 239 wins. Kobe Bryant died exactly 239 lunar phases after the movie Remember the Titans. We'll dig more into this part later. But 239, that's the 52nd prime number. And Frank Wycheck has died at age 52. The Philadelphia Eagles, the team representing his hometown, have only won one Super Bowl in history, and that was Super Bowl 52, won by Philadelphia. In the reduction method, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania sums to 118. And before last night's Monday Night Football game, the Titans had played 1,018 games in the history of their franchise. 118 is a number associated with death and homicide in Latin. And measuring from the Titans' anniversary, August 14th, Frank Wycheck died a span of 118 days later. This year was the Titans' 64th anniversary. Frank Wycheck dead on a date with primary numerology of 64. In reduction, both Houston Oilers and the state of Pennsylvania equals 64. Frank Wycheck died 64 days before this year's upcoming Super Bowl. In reverse gematria, the word kill equals 64. And if you measure to Wycheck's next birthday, you get the 64th prime number, 311. Also in reverse, NBA equals 64. And on the same date that Frank Wycheck died, December 9th, the NBA concluded its first ever in-season tournament. While playing for the Tennessee Titans, Frank Wycheck wore number 89. Now, the number 89 is significant and ties us into Kobe Bryant. On the calendar, 89 weeks is exactly 623 days. And in Latin Gematria, 89 sums to 623. Well, think about Frank Wycheck's initials. F, the 6th letter, W, the 23rd. This represents another 623. The Music City Miracle lateral was caught by Kevin Dyson, who ran down the sideline and scored a touchdown. And notice how Kevin Dyson was born on June 23rd. The date written 623 on the calendar. Frank Wycheck died 6 months and 23 days after Bob Saget's birthday. The Music City Miracle was even 236 days after Saget's birthday. And when Philadelphia played the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football just one day after Frank died, notice how they entered and left the game, as they lost, with a total of 623 victories in franchise history. This brings us back to Kobe Bryant, a big Eagles fan, born in Philadelphia. In Latin Gematria, the name Bryant equals 623. This year's in-season tournament was won by who else? The Los Angeles Lakers, the team that Kobe played his entire career with. In fact, the tournament MVP award went to LeBron James, who passed Kobe Bryant on the all-time scoring list just a day or two before Kobe died. And check out the two numbers that LeBron James has worn throughout his career. 6 and 23. Both numbers he's worn for the Lakers. 623. The number 6 upside down is 9. Well, the name LeBron James equals 923 in the same cipher. And these numbers are connected because the 9th prime number is 23. And if you measure from the death of Bob Saget, who died on the 9th, to the death of Frank Wycheck, who also died on the 9th in the year 23, you find that they died exactly 23 months apart. I mean, what are the odds of all this? Frank Wycheck falling and hitting his head, just like Bob Saget, both born in Philadelphia? It's too crazy. Now, me, myself, I have some strong personal synchronicity with this. In one of my recent videos, I mentioned how my grandmother passed away, and we had her service on December 9th, which is the same day that Frank Wycheck died. And my grandmother, for nearly 40 years, her partner's name was Frank. And there's a lot more. I was named, my first name comes from a guy named Frank. My last name, Tickery, is Finnish, and my godfather, his last name is Frank. So there's a lot that goes into this. I'm going to do another video later this week, but for now, let's focus again on the NBA in-season tournament. Notice how in Latin Gematria, NBA in-season tournament sums to 1014. Now, this is really interesting because Frank Wycheck was born on October 14th, or 1014, as we write it on the calendar. The date can also be written as 1410, and in trigonal gematria, which is the alphabetic order, but with triangular numbers applied. Here's a quick glance at that cipher on the top right. Trigonal. The name Frank John Wycheck sums to 1410. So the Lakers won the in-season tournament. Lakers equals 206. And remember how Kobe Bryant died on the 26th day of the year. A lot like the word sacrifice summing to 206. Well, Frank Wycheck was born exactly 206 sidereal months, or lunar orbits, after Bob Saget, whose name sums to 26. And then Wycheck died 206 days after Saget's May 17th birthday. 26 also the gematria of Philly, their hometown. So I pointed out how the Philadelphia Eagles still have 623 wins, which is a huge number connected to Frank Wycheck. Well, this was the Eagles' 1,283rd game of all time. And why is that interesting? Well, 1,283 is a prime number, divisible only by 1 and itself. This would be the 208th prime number. This is the ordinal value of Nashville, Tennessee, also Maryland Terrapins. And Frank Wycheck played college football for the Maryland Terrapins. Now, in Sumerian Gematria, which is the simple alphabetic order, but multiplied by 6, the first perfect number, and the number most closely associated with time. Well, in Sumerian Gematria, both Maryland Terrapins and Nashville, Tennessee, sums to 1,248. That stands out because Frank Wycheck died during Brown lunation number 1,248. And if you measure from the Music City Miracle on January 8th of 2000 to Frank Wycheck's death, you get exactly 1,248 weeks. With reverse capital letters, a cipher which still maintains the alphabetic order but adds 26 for every capital letter, the name Frank Wycheck sums to 248. Human sacrifice sums to 248. And the name Kobe Bryant sums to 248 in a unconventional cipher. But notice how Kobe Bryant wore the numbers 24 and 8 during his career. Kobe died exactly 248 lunar phases after the Music City Miracle. Notice how ritual sacrifice and Frank Wycheck share numbers as well. So next up, let's talk about how this is connected to the eclipse code. The name Wycheck has this famous 33 value in reduction, just like the word eclipse. And he died the same day as a tornado outbreak. The Titans moved to Tennessee. They used to be the Oilers. Well, Frank Wycheck died 3 months and 30 days before the second Great American Eclipse over the United States. Notice how the full name, Frank John Wycheck, has matching 257 gematria with Bob Saget. This is a number I commonly talk about being connected to the total solar eclipse code, which equals 257. Blood sacrifice, 257. Now, earlier this year in October, Yale University, home to the Skull and Bone Society, Order 322, turned 322 years old in the year 2023, and Skull and Crossbones has this 223 value. Remember, the Star-Spangled Banner and Philadelphia, both with these sums as well. On the date that Frank Wycheck died, Yale University was 322 years and 61 days old. He died 61 days after the anniversary. In reduction gematria, Skull and Crossbones sums to 61. The name Frank Wycheck also summing to 61. Just like the city of Philadelphia, also 61. Reverse reduction. The Houston Oilers, who became the Tennessee Titans, were founded during Brown Lunation 601. And if you measure from their founding on August 14th to the birthday of Frank Wycheck, October 14th, notice how you get 61 days. Frank Wycheck, famous for the Music City Miracle. Miracle, also 61. The Eagles' 1,283rd game, this also points to the number 666, which equals 283, like the moon 283. Now, the number 666 is important to the Brotherhood of Death, which is the other name for the Skull and Bone Society. The Brotherhood of Death has matching 724 gematria with Number of the Beast. The number of the beast is revealed in the book of Revelation, which sums to 121 in the alphabetic order. When the Eagles lost to the Cowboys this weekend, it was on December 10th, or 12/10. Frank Wycheck died 121 days before the second Great American Eclipse. This number also connected to the Kobe Bryant, who passed away during Brown lunation number 1201. This also connects to Music City. Music City has gematria of 121, but perhaps more significant is that it sums to 844 in Latin gematria. While in the ancient Hebrew language, where the biblical texts are believed to have originated, Revelation sums to 844, just like Music City. Frank Wycheck was born exactly 4,444 days after the Tennessee Titans were established. Skull and Bones 322 and Skull and Crossbones, both with 444 gematria. And look how old Frank Wycheck was for the Music City Miracle. 10,313 days. Well, 130 is the ordinal value of Skull and Bones with the ampersand and human sacrifice. In fact, the Music City Miracle has matching 1,105 gematria with Skull and Crossbones. Now, if you measure from the first Great American Eclipse, which again passed over the city of Nashville, Tennessee, home of the Titans, to the death of Frank Wycheck, you get 6 years, 110 days. Well, 611 is the Latin gematria of Brotherhood of Death, also blood sacrifice in Satanic 611. In fact, 611 is also the gematria of Uranus, and we'll dive into that riddle in a little bit. But when it comes to eclipse numbers, no number takes the cake more than 1331, the ultimate eclipse number. And Frank Wycheck wasn't just a professional football player, but he was also a professional wrestler, as he took part in a total nonstop action pay-per-view called Slammiversary back in 2007. On the date of that Slammiversary event, Frank Wycheck was 13,031 days old. Notice how Titans sums to 1331 with reverse square numbers. And why would he show up at an event called Slammiversary? Well, Slammiversary has matching 175 gematria with the full name, Frank John Wycheck, 175. And if you measure from the anniversary of Slammiversary, which was June 17th, or 17/6, Slammiversary equals 176 in reverse. Wycheck died 175 days after the anniversary of Slammiversary, matching his name and Slammiversary. So back in October, on Frank Wycheck's birthday, when he turned 52 years old, we had this annular eclipse. The initials Frank Wycheck, FW, also reminds me of fiscal week. And think about how there's 52 fiscal weeks in a year, matching his age. This also connects us back to Bob Saget. Notice how the name Saget has ordinal gematria of 52. And when Bob Saget died in 2022, it was on a date with primary numerology of 52. Wow, he also died during Brown lunation 1225. This reminds us of the Christmas Day bombing in Nashville, Tennessee on 1225. But back to this 52. like Saget. Back in 2021, we had this very significant solar eclipse, which was completely connected to the number 52. And let's quickly explain why. First of all, this eclipse belonged to Saros series 152. As you see on the date calculator, these features available to Mystic members and up. And the date of this eclipse was 12/4. Well, when you write out the number 52 as it's spelled, it sums to 124, just like the date December 4th. Furthermore, this eclipse also began brown lunation 12/24, 1224, the same digits found in the date. And that eclipse just happened to be 52 days with the end date after Frank Wycheck's birthday. So, when we measure from that eclipse to the death of Frank Wycheck, we get exactly 105 weeks. Wycheck was found dead in his Chattanooga home. Notice how Chattanooga sums to 105 in ordinal. In Sumerian Gematria, the name Frank John Wycheck sums to 1,050, just like Slammiversary. Annular eclipse equals 150, his birthday on the date of an annular eclipse this year. But check out Bob Saget's birth numerology. When you multiply the digits, you get 1,050, matching Wycheck's name. In fact, Bob Saget was born 15 years, 150 days before Frank Wycheck. Music City Miracle, Super Bowl 34, and Titans all sum to 105. Philadelphia Eagles even have that 150. But this also brings us back to the film Remember the Titans. In standard gematria, Remember the Titans equals 1,050, and the film came out 15 days before Wycheck's birthday. He was also 10,578 days old when the movie came out. So here you have the 15, but you also have the 78. Well, Remember the Titans equals 78 in reduction gematria. And this 78 is actually big. Frank Wycheck was born on the date leaving 78 days in the year. And in the alphabetic order, Wycheck equals 78. Just like Oilers, the Titans' old name. Meanwhile, Bob Saget, whose real first name was Robert, he was born on a date with 78 numerology. Both Robert and Saget sum to 78. The 78th prime number is 397. And last night, in their first game after Wycheck's death, the Titans defeated the Miami Dolphins. And the Miami Dolphins now have 397 franchise losses. Again, the 78th prime number, connecting to Wycheck and Saget. Remember the Titans. Before I go into the next post, I want to quickly touch on the number 22. Now, Bob Saget died in the first month of 22. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Frank John Wycheck both sum to 253, which is the 22nd triangular number. Notice how Philadelphia Eagles equals 202, so does Eagles, 22 in reduction. They were in Dallas that weekend, which equals 22. Remember the Titans released on a 22 date. Frank Wycheck died on the date leaving 22 days in the year. Wycheck's death was exactly 202 weeks after the death of Kobe Bryant. And in reduction, the word basketball equals 22. Skull and Bones equals 202. The Brotherhood of Death equals 220. And the National Football League was founded by secret societies. In fact, the father of American football is Walter Camp, who was a graduate of Yale University, home of the Skull and Bones Society. National Football League equals 220, 22 players in a game. But it also equals 1320, and Frank Wycheck died exactly 1320 sidereal months after Walter Camp, the father of football. So Frank Wycheck died in Tennessee a span of 1,080 days after the Nashville bombing in Tennessee, right across the river from the Titans Stadium. 1,080 is the standard value of Tennessee Titans. Frank Wycheck equals 180. So does his number 89. Ritual Sacrifice 180 with caps. Ritual Sacrifice also has matching 73 Gematria with Nashville, Tennessee. And I thought it was interesting that bombing was 73 days after Wycheck's birthday. And he died the same day as the Tennessee Tornadoes, which also has Gematria of 73. So after Frank Wycheck died, we had this amazing Titans game where they came back from 14 down against the Dolphins, and they did so with less than 3 minutes to play. Now, I forget the stat, but it was like almost 600 games in the NFL where a team down by 14 with 3 minutes left, lost their last 582 games. So the Tennessee Titans' miraculous win, right? Reminding us of the Music City miracle. So, the 14-point comeback in Week 14 of the NFL. This is also the 104th season of NFL football. And check out how 14 and comeback both have Gematria of 104. Frank Wycheck died 1,414 days after Kobe Bryant, another Philadelphia native. And remember, Frank Wycheck was born on the 14th of the month. The name Frank Wycheck even equals 196, which is 14 squared. 14 times 14. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Nashville bombing was connected to the planet Uranus, as the bombing occurred exactly 1 Uranian year after the birth of Pope Francis, who was born on the anniversary of Uranus's discovery. The planet Uranus was discovered by a man named William Herschel. And think about how this name connects to the NFL. Running back Herschel Walker, who was traded from the Cowboys, the team that the Eagles played this weekend. Herschel Walker was traded away from the Cowboys in what is called the most lopsided and famous trade in NFL history, where the Vikings basically bargained off their entire future for this guy. And this is no mistake. Herschel Walker also connected to the planet Uranus. So let's see how this works. His full name, Herschel Jr. Walker, sums to 1414, right? Frank Wycheck, 14 squared, dead 1,414 days after Kobe. The element uranium-235 is used in nuclear fission. And notice how Herschel Walker's full name also has Gematria of 235. In fact, in Latin, Herschel Walker equals 1235. The name of the Nashville bomber was Anthony Quinn Warner, whose name equals 235 in reverse. And if you measure from the Nashville bombings to the death of Frank Wycheck, you get 2 years, 350 days. This is also exactly 2 years and 50 weeks, which represents 25, and uranium equals the 25th prime number in Gematria. Also notice how uranium has matching gematria with Titans, including the number 56, like Frank Wycheck, who died 56 days after his birthday. So again, that same weekend of the bombing, the Titans lost to the Packers, and now both the Titans and Packers played as visitors on Monday Night Football on the same night. So the other element that's used in nuclear fission is plutonium-239, and I mentioned this number earlier. The Titans got their 239th win since moving to Tennessee last night. The 52nd prime number, Wycheck's age. Now, if you instead measure from the date that they moved to their current stadium in Nashville, Tennessee, and changed their name to the Titans, this was their 208th win as the Tennessee Titans. Nashville, Tennessee equals 208 in ordinal gematria. So the planet Uranus equals 611. Frank Wycheck died 6 years, 110 days after the eclipse over Nashville, Tennessee. When you look at the name of the man who discovered the planet Uranus, looking again here at William Herschel, we find that William Herschel's full name, Frederick William Herschel, sums to 1410. Well, we just talked about this number. Frank John Wycheck equals 1410. He was born on the 14th day of the 10th month. In Sumerian gematria, both Herschel Jr. Walker and Anthony Quinn Warner sum to 1410. Now, this date is also written as 1014. 10/14. Well, Frank Wycheck was born on a date with 114 numerology. And he was born on October 14th, 1014. Now, I don't think... Herschel Walker was the 114th pick in the draft. See this? 114. Uranus was discovered on a date with primary numerology of 114, 3 plus 13 plus 17 plus 81. Frank Wycheck went to Maryland, also played for the Houston Oilers, both with 114 gematria. William Herschel died on the date leaving 128 days in the year, and that stands out because William Herschel equals 1208. Frederick William Herschel equals 128. Kobe Bryant born on a 128 date, for the record. Frank Wycheck sums to 128. So does Maryland and Miracle, all connecting here. Wycheck was born 85,070 days after William Herschel. 857 is the 148th prime number. The name Herschel Walker sums to 148 in ordinal. Miracle and Eagles also with 148 gematria. Now we need to look at how Uranus also connects to Bob Saget. These connections are way too strong. The name Frank John Wycheck has matching 175 gematria with Maryland with capital letters. Bob Saget was born 175 years after the discovery of Uranus, and his birthday is the 17th day of the 5th month, or 17/5, syncing up with the 175s here. Saget was also born 65 days after the anniversary of its discovery. Philadelphia equals 65, and Saget would later die at the age of 65. Notice how he died 237 days after his birthday. William Herschel died on the 237th day of the year. Uranus was discovered on March 13th, or 313. Well, the name Saget equals 313, and that's the 65th prime number, a number we see multiple times. When William Herschel discovered Uranus, he was 2,208 weeks old. And then Herschel died in the year 1822. Bob Saget was born 8 months and 22 days after the anniversary of Herschel's death. And his birthday was also the date leaving 228 days in the year. The word death equals 228. Kobe Bryant died exactly 22,080 days after the founding of the Tennessee Titans way back in '59. So to wrap this video up, let's look a little bit more at these syncs between the three Philadelphia natives, Frank Wycheck, Bob Saget, and Kobe Bryant. Once again, Wycheck's full name connects to Bob Saget's birthday, the 17th of May. Saget was born in '56, like Frank Wycheck, who died 56 days after his birthday. Frank was born in the year 71. And the name Bob Saget equals 71 in ordinal. And this weekend, the Dallas Cowboys got their 71st win over the Eagles in franchise history. Frank equals 50, while tight end equals 87. Well, Frank, the tight end, was 50 years, 87 days old when Bob Saget died. The name Bob Saget also 870. Frank Wycheck equals 128, tight end 129. Saget died 128 or 129 days before his birthday with the end date. 12/9, also the date of Frank's death. Bob Saget died exactly 1,145 weeks after the Super Bowl that Wycheck played in. Bob Saget 145. That was Super Bowl 34. Tennessee 34. Titans 340. Saget dead 34 weeks after his 65th birthday. Now, I also want to touch on the film Remember the Titans. And I point this movie out once again because it's especially wild that this film came out in the year 2000. 2000 is the same year that Super Bowl 34 featuring the Titans was played in. And again, this was their first season as the Titans. So the odds of this are just stupid. Well, the name Kobe Bryant has matching 690 Gematria with Remember the Titans. And this brings us to the next mind-blowing part of this riddle. And thankfully the last one before I end this video. When Kobe Bryant died, Bob Saget was 1,162 weeks old exactly. Robert Lane Saget equals 162, just like planet Uranus. In reverse, Saget's full name is 243. Frank Wycheck was a Maryland Terrapin, which equals 243. Remember the Titans came out 243 days before the Titans lost the Super Bowl. Kobe's full name, Kobe Bean Bryant, equals 243 reverse. And 135 ordinal. Remember the Titans came out 135 days after Bob Saget's birthday. When the film was released, Kobe Bryant was 8,073 days old. These are the same 3 digits, or 4 digits, in his age during Super Bowl 34 with the Titans, 7,830 days. In Latin Gematria, Kobe Bean Bryant equals 738. Bob Saget died 8,037 days after the Music City Miracle, and 7 mercurial years, 83 days before Frank Wycheck. Now, why are we talking now suddenly about the planet Mercury? Well, if you follow my work, in fact, the description below, you'll see a video talking about Kobe Bryant and the planet Mercury. Strong riddles there. Mercury equals 86, and Kobe Bryant died when he was exactly 86 mercurial days old. A day on Mercury is exactly 1/2 of an orbit. And Kobe was exactly 172 mercurial years old when he died. He was born in the state of Pennsylvania 172. And if you watched my last video, I've been talking a lot about Pennsylvania lately. There's so much going on with this state in the news. Measuring from the founding of the Tennessee Titans to the birthday of Kobe Bryant, we find that he was born exactly 79 mercurial orbits after their founding. Both Titans and murder equals 79 and 83. Kobe's death was exactly 83 mercurial years after the Titans lost the Super Bowl. Kobe's death was also exactly 251 mercurial years after the Titans were founded. Ritual sacrifice and Maryland Terrapins also have that 251 Gematria, but more important is that 251 is the 54th prime number. Both Tennessee Titans and Kobe Bean Bryant summed to 54. And Kobe died exactly 1 week before Super Bowl 54. When the Titans lost the Super Bowl, Kobe was exactly 89 mercurial years old. The word kill equals 89. Well, Frank Wycheck wore number 89. And remember, in Latin Gematria, the number 89 has matching 623 Gematria with Bryant 623. Mercury equals 129 with capital letters, matching the date that Frank Wycheck died. And Mercury, appropriately, has matching 205 Gematria with Philadelphia, which is the hometown of all these men. So just crazy synchronicity with all of this. And I'm sure there's more. You know, I did 4 posts on this, and they're all pretty meaty. There's really no need, no reason for me to do more. Hell, you could argue that I could make 1 post, and there's not really any reason for me to do more, but my goal with numerology is to prove to people once and for all that the main reason numerology is so significant to the people in control of our federal government, the wealthy, the elite class, is because this code is primarily organic. There's no way that human beings are responsible for all of this. This is way beyond human ability. And I know this on a personal level, and I'm not asking you guys to believe me. All I'm asking you to do is pay attention to the world around you and notice how synchronicity will literally fall in your lap. Now, back in 2020, what made this Nashville bombing so insane as far as synchronicity goes is that the guy who has helped me with decoding the most throughout the years is Bobby Simpson, who's a moderator on this channel and in the chat live right now. And Bobby lives in Tennessee, right? Well, on the same day, and you'll see that Bobby, his screen name on YouTube is Casey Jones. He runs a blog called Casey Jones Occult Astrology, right? Well, if I can find this post here, you'll see that on the exact same day as the Nashville bombing, we had the death of basketball player Casey Jones. Let me just punch this in here. Yeah, here it is. So on the same day as the Nashville bombing, number 25 Casey Jones died. And the Oklahoma City bombing was 25 years and 250 days before this bombing. It was 205 weeks into Trump's term. He was the president. The bombing was downtown. The bomber played a song called Downtown, which was 20,525 days old. So anyway, you know, we have this death of Casey Jones on the same date as the Nashville bombing. My friend, a.k.a. Casey Jones from Tennessee. And that same weekend, the Titans played against the Packers. Well, I live in Wisconsin, and the Packers are my hometown team. Now, as I mentioned in my last video, my grandmother passed away last week, December 1st into December 2nd. And we had her service on December 9th, the same day that Frank Wycheck died. Notice how in reverse Sumerian, my grandmother's name equals 1290, like the date of her service. She officially passed away on December 2nd, or 12/2, and her name equals 122. Here's a look at my grandmother's obituary, just for the record. December 2nd, just to confirm. Not sure why her birthday's not on here, but it was August 1st of 37. Not going to dive too deep into it, but last year, when I was visiting with my grandma and introducing her to numerology, she told me that when it comes to numbers, the number 2, or repeating 2s, are always what stood out to her. So I ran her name and found that it sums to 220 and 122, and then she passed away on 12/2. Now, my grandma, after she divorced my grandfather, she kept her name Tickery, but for almost 40 years, she dated a guy named Frank. See this? It's in her obituary. Her lifelong partner, Frank Roth. Frank, right? We get the death of Frank Wycheck on the same day as her funeral. And this connects to me as well, because my name, Derek, was chosen by my dad's friend, Frank. And my godfather's last name is Frank. So I have so much synchronicity with this. Again, it's going to be worth its own video. I have to do a post on it, and I'll talk at length more about this. And what's so wild is that it's also connected to my last video about the goalie goals. Now, I grew up a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, and these goals were the same night that my grandma passed away. So there's so much to unpack, and I guess what I'll leave you with is this. When it came to this big Pittsburgh riddle, there was a missing element that Bobby and I had been discussing. And it makes sense if you think about it, because Adam Johnson, who played for the Pittsburgh Penguins, died on the same day as Matthew Perry. And Matthew Perry was calling himself Matman before he died. Well, Batman's arch nemesis is the Penguin, and Johnson played for the Penguins. Adam Johnson was killed by the ice skate of a player named Matthew Petgrave. And think about how close that name is to the name Matthew Perry, which is 172. Pennsylvania 172. And Adam Johnson died at the age of 10,720 days. Now, earlier this year, I did a post on the death of Tony Bennett. I don't think Google finds my post. Oh, yeah, it does. And Tony Bennett was a famous crooner. And when I started thinking about this, right, you have Matthew Perry, who played a character named Chandler Bing on Friends, right? Well, the Penguins have a famous player named Sidney Crosby, right? Sidney Crosby. And when I thought about this, Bing and Crosby, I started to think, well, Bing Crosby, right? This is another famous crooner. And there was one recorded song played at my grandma's funeral, chosen by my grandmother. And it was the song, Irish Eyes Are Smiling, When Irish Eyes Are Smiling by Bing Crosby. So when I saw this at the funeral, you know, I kind of broke out into tears, not for the same reason that many people would think, but because of this startling synchronicity. You know, I was basically kind of looking for something with Bing Crosby connected to these goalie goals with the death of Adam Johnson. And then it turns out Bing Crosby, the only recorded song played at my grandma's funeral. So this is the side of the world of numerology that I want people to see. And unfortunately, you know, my channel is always going to be squashed and censored as much as YouTube can, which is why I plan on taking this to other avenues in the future. Now, in 2024, I'm going to be spending a lot more time on the website again, trying to get that to where I really want it to be. I'm also going to be writing a book in the very near future. And it's going to be an interesting book. It's going to focus on the story of my development through what I've learned with this code and how all of these things in the mainstream media have also applied to my life as well. And while there may be some truth in the fact that synchronicity is stronger with me, since I'm the person who built this calculator and really helped bring the knowledge to the masses, I really do believe that this machine is operating in everybody's life. And if we all knew more about how to find these synchronicities, we would be blown away at what this world is trying to tell us and what the Creator has in store for every soul on Earth. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this video. Special kudos to everyone who made it to the end, as there always are. This was a big, long one. I'm probably not going to do many videos between now and the end of the year. And again, 2024 is going to be very slim. I'm going to be refocusing my efforts on better ways of growing the educational side of Gematria, trying to teach people my decoding methods and how I go about and see things. You know, I keep talking about bringing Gematria to the next level. While we may have done that in some degree to this point, I think there's many more steps that can be taken. So, once again, that'll do it for this video. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you all next time. See ya.